Oh my goodness. Welcome everybody. I am so excited. This is Rabbi Sol Solomon of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I'm very thrilled and excited and happy, and in more ways than one, to be talking to a very special guest all the way from Hawaii. You know, if the Jews didn't make Miami and Boca Raton paradise, and it weren't all the way across the ocean where we couldn't get to our grandchildren, then Hawaii would certainly be the place that we would like to go, especially because living there in glorious retirement, and except not completely 100% retired as far as business dealings, is a comedienne, someone who is in the forefront in some ways of women's liberation, and yet I don't hold that against her. Ladies and gentlemen, the woman who gave the world such tunes as Knockers Up and Bounce Your Boobies, and God knows I love boobies. Please welcome to the neighborhood with me, Rabbi Sol. Please welcome Rusty Warren. Rusty, good morning to you.
Well, shalom there, Rabbi. And how are you, Sol?
Don't ask. You got your boobies, I got my prostate. Everybody's got different things we're worried about. But I'm thank God I'm doing okay. I'm here, I'm alive. That's all you can ask in this day and age. And how are you feeling?
It's fine. How are you? Where the hell did you find me? I've been out of that limelight, since 1985 or something, when I retired here to Hawaii. Nice and quiet, doing my own little life, and all of a sudden, you pop up and say, "Hey, how you doing?"
Well, I avoid the word "pop up." But the thing is, well, as you know, Jews control media, and there's an international Jewish conspiracy where we all know each other. So,
who told you that?
Oh, I know it's under wraps.
Kim Meyer told you that.
but I figured, I thought, let me find a Jew. And I said, let me find a Jew in Hawaii, because there can't be that many. Your name popped up in the database.
25%, the rest are Portuguese, Asian, and the wonderful Hawaiian people.
So let me, do you eat wasubi? Do you eat, Spam?
I don't know, but the world does. That's part of their breakfast fare.
Have you tried poi? Are you one of the poyum?
Only when I'm invited to a big Hawaiian bash, and it's only potatoes or whatever they call it. It's just a starch. Another way of eating different food. It's an experience. Well, and the Hawaiian people are very warm, very loving, very giving, actually.
Oh, this is good. Warm,
even
loving.
I'm called the Hale because I'm Caucasian, but it's a way of living that doesn't come up really. Religion very rarely comes up with all the friends I hang out with. On Passover or one of the holidays, and I have fun during Christmas because I get to go to some of their wonderful Christmas chorals and events and everything, and then I light my candles,
Good for you. Well, her name, we're not going to make a big deal of this, but Rusty Warren's real name was Eileen Goldman. So this is also a good clue. It's kind of, when did you change your name and how did you pick Rusty Warren?
Well, when I was about, 18 or 19 or somewhere around that, I sort of had red in my blondie hair. I was born a blonde with blue eyes. And I just found out that you can't put an ad in the paper saying Eileen Goldman at the piano. I mean, it just didn't ring true. And a lot of my friends said, find a name. You got to find a last name. You can't use Goldman, which is understandable. So I happen to live in a corner in Milton, Massachusetts, the corner of Warren Avenue and Mar Avenue, where I live. And I said, Warren, okay, Warren, Eileen Warren. Well, it was Eileen Warren for when I was playing piano and doing cocktail work before I even opened my mouth to say anything on a microphone. And I started to find a color of my hair. What could I wear rather than just a sort of light golden brownie, whatever it was. And I happen to have great hair, so they asked me to go on stage with them at the Clear Oil big bash that they have, and they need they need people to work on it. It's a sort of a big thing that they do every year. And I sat down and they had me blonde, ash blonde, and then all of a sudden somebody, all in one day, this is not easy on your hair in those days, I became a light golden red, a lot of blonde with red, and it looked beautiful. It really did, Sal. It looked absolutely beautiful. So I said, great. And they said, oh, my. It's not quite Rusty, but it looks good. And I said, that's a cute name. And someone said, it's a name for a dog. I said, oh, okay. But it's the name for golden retrievers, isn't it? They're gold. They got blondie gold hair, whatever. Well, anyway, it became a joke. And I started using Rusty. And then people started calling me Rusty. The silly things like that establish a whole thing like Knockers Up. I invented the word. Knockers is the word, but the combination Knockers Up, I own the way it puts together.
Well, knockers usually do come in combinations. That's why I like them so much.
They always come in deuces, yeah.
Yes, yes,
but
indeed.
I was in Dayton, Ohio, when that happened. I started, I don't know, my boss was crazy. We did knockers, put your shoulders back and put a big smile on your face. Come on to girls, let's do it. We had a whole big audience. I'm at the piano bar. And he started getting the girls in the audience to march around, and I started playing a little march with them on the piano. And that's how the whole damn song came together. It took a while. We started yelling and screaming, and the girls are running around. The ladies are flying their boobs all around the place.
Yes, yes, damn it,
how the
yes.
Knockers Up march came.
You know what? Let us play.
You don't sit down and write this crap, you know.
Well, you know what? We're going to play Knockers Up, and I'm going to march around the room and scream and sing along with this song.
Oh, you have Knockers Up there? Okay.
Look, I'm an old Jewish man. I got what I got. I'll try and keep my prostate up, too. Here we go. This is Rusty Warren with the marching song, Knockers Up.
That was the first version I think we ever did.
Of Knockers Up, yes.
All that other Knockers Up, it varies. Over the years, I guess I changed a couple of words here and there. I haven't heard that song in so long.
I play it almost every day. Oh, my God, I love it.
For the memory.
This is how I exercise. Sorry,
my knockers haven't found up in a long time now.
But let me ask you, Rusty Warren, we kind of jumped the gun a little bit because people don't or may not know that you were a serious trained pianist. You actually studied under or played under, and I do not mean that in a naughty pun kind of a way, Arthur Fiedler.
Yes, I did.
So how did you go from being a quote-unquote a real pianist to holding up your knockers?
Well, at that time, I hadn't become Rusty Warren. I was still a student, and I was at the conservatory, doing conservatory music, where we all were studying music, and I thought probably maybe teaching or, something of that sort. I had no idea if I was even going to have a career at all at that point in my life. And Arthur Fiedler presented 21 pianos. This was his thing every year with every class. And we went up to Tanglewood in the northern Massachusetts, and we played, and we put together Chopin's Polonaise, I think it was, and there's 21 pianos under his baton, and he was a marvelous, beautiful human being. I never knew him personally, just to work under with him, and I was one of the chosen gals that weren't that many women, they're mostly men for some reason. The women, I don't know, they were in more or less the string section of the classes, and I was in the piano class. And so that's how we did it. Of course, he's from Boston, or he lived in Massachusetts. He did all those concerts for so many years.
So let me ask you a question, though, Rusty Warren. Was there a point where so many people who go to Juilliard or music schools like that, where they say, I'm pretty good, but I'm never quite, I'm not going to end up playing Carnegie Hall and getting record deals and being the next Van Cliburn.
Exactly.
So what, you still wanted to make music, and you went into piano bars and nightclubs?
Well, what happened is I realized my talent was limited. I got a little, I want to say bored. I got to find out in the classics I didn't have one tittle of the talent that my other students had. I knew that. I felt it. And then my personality. Now, you know, as a comedian, which it ended up being, my personality was, very mouthy. I wasn't a shy little girl. I was 5'8", and I was, at that time, brownie and, blondie colored thing. Nothing, really very, very nice girl, actually. But I really wanted more out of life. I wanted more excitement. And I was going with a gentleman. Well, at that time, it was just another guy, a boy, more or less. We were all students. And he said, why don't you get boogie-woogie and classics? And that's what I wanted. So I switched in from the classical over to what they call the popular section of the conservatory. And they had other things. I learned in bands, orchestras of that sort, and I loved it. And I played the piano and quite a few the bands we formed from the school, and we'd go out at local places and play. And I was the few women that did the male band. I think even a couple of the old sax and trumpet players are still around. I get emails from one or two of them, and we're all in the 80s, so because we're all about the same group, so we get to laugh a lot about those early. They remember more about me than I do, and sometimes they don't want to hear it all.
Men would remember, even into their 80s, a sexy redhead.
Wonderful, yeah.
They would remember this.
And I did it. I started playing boogie-woogie. I started playing popular songs and classics, my own variations, and I enjoyed that. And then I went to work at one of the piano bars, as I did during my breaks at school, and in the summer holidays, I would go up to state New York. My mother would come with me. Two of us would drive up to New York, and Herkimer and Ilion and Cohoes and Syracuse. All those places were very big with piano bars. They had loads of them in those late 50s and the years. I graduated college in 52, so it was after high school and before college. And before I got out of the world, and then I decided that's a part of the changing the name into Eileen Warren. Then it went from Eileen and I with the Rusty, and it all came about in those at that time. It was like you reaching around for something. And I had a ball. One boss says to me, "Hey, lady, do you sing?" I said, well, I don't know. I suppose all of us can sing a little bit, not really as a singer per se, but I had more guts than brains. And I got there and I started singing songs and learned how to sing Roll Me Over and Waltz Me Around Again, Willie, and all those crazy songs that they had in jukebox and everything those days. And I sang. It was like I made $100 more a week.
Oh, my goodness.
If I could open my mouth and sing. Otherwise, it's $125.
There are people who would pay me $100 not to talk, to close my mouth every week. But
in those years, a lot of, let's say, the men that owned these businesses were basically, I don't know how to say it. They weren't mafia per se. That's what part of the industry was run by people who had control of the liquor business and the trucking business and that kind of thing. And they owned jukeboxes. And that's where the music was played. See, a couple of my 45s are still floating around. I don't know who produces them or where they come from, probably on eBay by this time. But I was in a lot of jukeboxes with the Waltz Me Around Again, Willie, songs you could sing with a group of people. It's I don't forget what they call it. My brain's stagnant.
But even then, it's one thing to be singing lively bar songs that everybody can chime in, like an Irish pub or whatever it is. Quite another to sort of morph into the risque, the bawdy, and the kinds of songs that you began to do. Were you ever embarrassed by some of this?
No, never? I wrote to a company in New York that put out parodies, and that's how I got into that business, because they had parodies. Don't forget, there weren't many people doing it. There was Dorothy Shea and a few other people that did it, and Charlie, whatever his name was. They all were little boys in New York City that played with what they call risque material, but very light. Even Sophie had a touch of it.
Sophie Tucker,
very light. That was that era, the 20s and all. They were very light. And, of course, in the 1930s and 40s, and then the 50s, it got a little bit naughtier. And they just did play on words and all that kind of comedy. And they did that at piano bars all over the world. And I used to listen to Ruth Wallace and do Ruth and Davy's Little Dinghy and all the cute songs that Ruth did. There wasn't much material I could steal from. And that's what I was doing, taking them off the record and singing. And that's where I became what I did. I remember one cute day, we're both working in Boston, and Ruth Wallace was working in another place, and I was working outside of a place that had Sophie Tucker in the main room, and I was playing the bar. And her husband came over, and I'm doing Ruth's numbers. I'm doing her song. He said, if you're going to do my mother, my wife's material, at least give her credit for it.
Fair enough. That's reasonable.
That was true.
You were sampling before there was sampling, actually. This is exciting. So
I was trying to find my little way, what I'd like to do. I didn't have anything. Then when you get older, a little bit older, you get to understand that the audience wants to talk to you. So I'm talking back and forth, and before you know it, my own personality came out of it. It must have been in me, so otherwise I couldn't have created this comedy, whatever it was, that I ended up doing. And later on in years, after I became Rusty Warren and I recorded all those albums, Jerry Blaine, the head of Jubilee Records, ended up giving me one of the record companies because I was practically the whole company. And at that time, later on, we took over the distribution of Ruth Wallace's numbers as she got older.
Oh my! I had no idea. See, this whole thing
where what goes around comes around.
Well, also that you weren't just a performer and just a groundbreaker in a woman doing this kind of material, but the fact that you ran, you made a record company. You got the
the one Jerry gave me was the one most of my albums were in. JG, it was called, and then we went over and it ended up being Jubilee.
And one of
the
really interesting things is because you were doing the kind of material you were doing, it was on jukeboxes, but it wasn't on the radio. It wasn't necessarily like you would hear it on the top 40, everybody go out and buy it. And yet your records sold. You almost made, did you make the top 40 or something like that?
No, it was interesting because at those times there wasn't anything like that on the radio. The only guys that were even naughty enough and strong enough with Dr. Demento. He was one of the ones that played me all the time. And it was played on a couple of programs like that. I did have the opportunity to go on programs on television, and as an interviewer, they would interview me. When I came into Cincinnati, Merv Griffin and Mike Douglas, and all those guys had little morning shows. And I was booked on those, guess who's opening this weekend at such and such a venue in their city. But that didn't help. Mostly I learned when I was in these clubs at the beginning of the 60s, the late 58, probably 59, I was still working the whole routine, the East-West, the Midwest, up and down between Chicago and the Florida, all over the place. They booked you all the way. I used to put out little cards on the table if you want to be on Rusty Warren's mailing list. And then they belonged to the Knockers Up Club. And all of this became a fringe people of people that liked me. And I kept those addresses, and I got hold of a company in Detroit. Now, of course, computer would have been nice in those days, but everything was done by hand. He had cards. He had mail cards. When I would come to Cleveland or Cincinnati or Indianapolis or any of those places, Detroit, Chicago, they would send out a card with my picture on it, opening so-and-so. This was a couple of weeks ahead of time. Before I got there, the place was sold out.
It was really viral marketing. 50 years before viral marketing, you were doing viral marketing. It's amazing.
Taught it to me. Sophie Tucker with her jams and jelly was so funny. When I had the opportunity to meet Sophie years ago, I hadn't even made Knockers Up yet. I was still in Phoenix in the 50s. And it was just, she said, be honest with your audience. Don't lie to them. And contact them. Feel close to them. Let them know you. Not personally, she didn't say those words. Right. But that's how I did it. I got to know them. And before they came to town, they brought a friend. When they came in the next year, they brought another friend. That friend brought another friend. I built a whole case of 300,000-400,000 people. Now, don't forget, I never was on the radio, well, a big radio and television itself. And that was how it was billed. I didn't go on Johnny Carson, the biggest show at the time.
Well, you had said, let me interrupt you, Rusty, let me ask you, because there's a thing, you have this feeling, and you had it then, that Johnny Carson just did not like you. Is this true?
No,
what the hell? What was this?
I really don't want to say it on radio. It's yesterday's news. But Johnny didn't care. I don't play his game, let's put it that way.
Okay.
He either liked the woman or he didn't like the woman. And I just wasn't his cup of tea. The only one that made it on to him about Johnny, and she was an actress, and as the comedian was Kay Ballard. She was so much different, of course, than I was. Kay was in another genre. She did so many more things, was much more talented than I ever was. And it was a clique of people, I guess, that knew each other, and I didn't fit it. I was a little too risque.
Which is ridiculous, because Carson was all about the raised eyebrow and making the comment.
Yeah,
and
he liked the innuendo. He didn't like. I don't think he liked the brashness. I was more aggressively brash in my word structure. And I did use hell and damn and words of that sort. I didn't do the Lenny Bruce thing with the words that Lenny used, who was a brilliant comedian, by the way. And
the Jew, and the Jewish man, yay!
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was quite a guy. And I was sorry to see him go as deep into the drug situation as he did. But some people live different way with their emotions and what happens to them. It was all around me, but for some reason I never wanted to touch that area. I did drink, not to any extent, but I did drink. And I smoked, which is why I'm sitting here with my oxygen in my nose. I smoked. By 50, I stopped smoking, but it was late. And I picked up COPD about 2 years ago.
Oh, my goodness. How's your heart? How's that? I just learned this week what COPD was. It's
like chronic bronchitis.
Oh.
And it could have been worse. Like, it goes to emphysema. And you're just basically on oxygen. I walk around and just don't play tennis anymore. You get shortness of breath. And you see the ads on television all the time for the medicines.
What amuses me is when you talk to a Jew, you say, "Oh, how are you?" "Oh, I'm fine. And then you talk a little more. It's like, "Oh, I've got COPD,
You're right.
and I've got bronchitis and oxygen, and you know."
Listen, at 80 years old, I got to have some aches and veins. But I don't play tennis and golf anymore. But only because I get out of breath if I have to do anything strenuous. But outside, I'm walking around and driving my car and playing bridge and doing the things I like to do and have a nice group of friends. It's very laid back living in Hawaii. But the days of my partying and running, I used to go to parties all over Hollywood and New York and everything. They walk in the door and they got a tray of Coke there. And I said, "Would you mind pointing me to the bar, please?"
See, I would go for the Diet Coke. That's what I would do.
I enjoyed wine and scotch, and I enjoyed it. But like I say, I wasn't a drunk on stage. I never overdid. I was never that way on stage. That was my choice of fun drink.
We're talking with Rusty Warren. Rusty, do you have a couple of more minutes with us?
If you have time, sure.
Oh, of course, but it is 12:01 in the afternoon here at the university, the beautiful University of Northern Colorado. I'm Rabbi Sol Solomon. The name of the program is Dave's Gone By, and you're listening to it on uncradio.com and also Channel 3 in the dorm room, so all you hot little co-eds with your boobies, that's where you might be listening. Let us hear a little bit more of Rusty Warren. Let us, again, where she's pushing the boundaries, where she's talking about things that back then you didn't necessarily talk about.
You know how to scare a guy? Call him up and say, "Guess what?" Scare the hell out of him. Maybe it doesn't scare so much when you call your own husband. It's when you call your neighbor's husband and tell him, "Guess what?" He's been scared. Look at him over there. His wife doesn't even know what someone called him on the phone and said, "Oh, sweetheart, guess what?" All the way from Malibu, right? Well, I'm going to do a song now for the men who may be scared or may have been scared at one time or another. It's a tune I like to dedicate to the PTA. That's Pill Takers Anonymous. And our motto is just take a pill a day to keep the stalk away. Tra-la-la. If you're inclined to lay, why not try PTA? The letters are synonymous with Pill Takers Anonymous. Just take a pill a day to keep the stalk away. No more fertility, you'll have sterility. Goodbye to worry when in a hurry. Why end up scared? Take a pill and be prepared. Take the pill, and you won't get caught with this pill, which now can be bought. Tra-la-la. So you won't misconstrue what these pills do to you. Use them to your heart's content while you are pleasure bent. Then if you should decide to take the kiddie ride, just stow the pills away until another day. And with him by your side, you soon will swell with pride. And he can say, I made her what she is today. But till then, take the pill and you won't get caught. Yes, till then, take the pill, which now can be bought. Tra-la-la. So for the sexy life, free from the care and strife, just take a pill a day, and you won't get that way. And if by some mistake your pill should fail to take, you're still home free. 'Cause there's a money back guarantee. But till then, take the pill and you won't get caught. Yes, till then, take the pill, which now can be bought. Girls, what do you got to lose? After all, it's guaranteed by good housekeeping. That's true. No, the pill cannot fail, at least I hope not. No, the pill cannot fail, for last night I got caught. Take the pill anyway.
Rusty Warren with the Pill Song. Again, a very early mention in music of something that was quite controversial. Around what time did that song come out, Rusty?
Well, that was during the time of our decade when the government, everyone was trying to stop people from having abortions. They wanted to find something that would make women more free. It was a sense of women's freedom. That was that whole era of the freedom of women. And that's when they came up with this birth control pill. My God, you'd think we created some monster. And when it happened, that's why we wrote the song, because it was just being funny. We're not going to change the rules. And when it happened, it broke off. Don't forget, we're talking about the 60s, when everybody was wild. Women were finding a sense of sexual freedom in those years.
Yes.
They were doing that. They were experimenting. The Haight-Ashburys and San Francisco areas and the New Yorks and all this craziness. And men were growing up saying, hey, I don't want to wear all this. I want to wear Levi's. And they wore tight pants. And they were more obvious about their bodies, which they never were. And women were throwing their boobs around and their asses. All kinds of things were going on. And, of course, everyone was finding their sexuality. And there was a big time in our time between the Pill Song and the women's movement and the Gloria Steinem and her group. And I got on the fringe of involvement in some of that. I remember when I went to a big rally, a professional rally in Harvard Square. And everyone was there. Gloria Steinem, I got to say hello to her. And I met Bella Abzug, who was mouthy. And she met me. She said, Rusty Warren. Where the hell do I know that name? Oh, you're the bitch that talks about my tits and all that crap. Come on, knock it off. We women are more than our bodies. And she went on a tirade on me. And of course, I laughed at that point. But I was sort of, I mean, she was a big woman, a powerful woman, and I was sort of hurt and embarrassed that she would take my comedy as serious as she did about me yelling about boobs and knockers and showing women as the figures that men looked at us about.
Let me tell you, Rusty Warren, let me tell you something. The reason Bella Abzug was angry about this is that nobody in the whole history of the world wanted to see Bella Abzug's knockers. Nobody wanted to see those boobs.
Yeah, she did have big boobs now that I think of it, yeah. And there was all the uprising in those years where people got together and we came out on things. Even you remember Anita Bryant came out for the gay people and all that horrible stuff that she brought up and made a terrible mark in our country about anti-homosexuality and all that thing. And I remember when we were talking off camera there for a minute, and we're talking about Colorado and everything, and I'd love to stay. And my opportunity to being up there, it came when Reverend Troy Perry, who's the head of the Metropolitan Community Church, the head church for the gay people, but they open everyone is welcome. And there's...
I'm sure the gay church does open everyone. I'm sorry.
Yes,
continue,
it does.
Please.
It's universal. And they asked my cell, and then another woman... And we all went to the University of Northern Colorado, and we went up there, and as we were coming in the door, all the signs from the gay area up there were for us. And the other side, there were sounds about no freedoms and fags and all kinds of words they were using on site. So what kind of a world is it? I'm afraid now. Somebody might kill us. You know, I'm only up here being funny about gay stuff or people or raising money or being against it, and the school had to protect us, and we were on a forum. In fact, I remember one of the Mormon nuns had left the church. I can't remember the nun's name. She had left the church, and she was a very high Mormon. I don't know. And they excommunicated her, and I'm so sorry I can't remember her name. But she was very vocal about religion and gays and freedoms of people like we know today. We understand it now in the 21st century, but don't forget it's in the middle of the 60s.
You know, if they
we're coming out of all, when I'm putting a point of people are coming out of their inner feeling and love, and the love thing, and all that came out, free love, and then men became to be more sexual. They began to show their chest hairs and their butts, and they didn't wear ties. They wore narrow jackets and gold chain and earrings, and wow, it was a blast to see men change so much, and women, of course, and then all that stuff happened in those years.
Well, let me ask you, Rusty Warren, has it gone too far? Here you were doing, even when you were doing all the songs about the boobies and the pill and the knockers and all that, but you weren't using specifically dirty words. Now, for the past couple of decades, you have comedians like Sarah Silverman, and then the male comedians, they say anything about stopping sheep, about sex, about the penises, the thing. Is it too much?
When I was doing it, and then later in the 70s, I said, I don't know. I used to say on stage, we're doing this now. What happens with our children, I will never know, because I'll be long gone from the stage. And in 25 years, it did. It changed, and now it's 50 years. And we're going to come back into the middle. Like most things that are new and different, and this has been going on, 25, 30 years, if not more, this freedom. They went all the way on one side, and now they're coming back to a more pleasant sexuality. Even though women have their powers, they find it difficult to deal with men. Men that are young men today aren't the men that we knew in the 60s. This was their fathers, their grandfathers. And it was totally different. And yeah, everybody's got their freedoms, and we're still fighting. The Jews have, I would say, less anti-Semitism, but it's quieter. It'll always be there in some form. and even the Negroes that came up now, the black people, and they came up in the '60s when their freedoms were finally recognizing to have more, let's say, power in their lives. It's still going to be there. There's always going to be hatred.
Just because we have a black president doesn't mean that suddenly everything's...
No, we've come a long way, haven't we? We really have. And sexuality, I think we really have. There are comedians today that I don't care for. One I really think is hysterically funny is Kathy Griffin.
Oh, she is fun. Yes, she is. She
Very
amuses
funny.
me.
In fact, Kathy is going to, I can't say Kathy, I don't know her. Kathy Griffin is going to be appearing here in Hawaii in April at the big Blaisdell Theater Center. And I would love, if she, I don't even think she knows me, but if she did know that I live in Hawaii and I adore her work. She's clever. She's not only a comedian, she's an actress, and she really does it in a nice way. But she's ballsy, and she uses the four-letter words I never dared use. And she gets away with stuff, and she's tough. And I'd like that persona, whether she's tough herself, I don't know. But I see what she's putting. I say, now there's a woman that's doing in the 21st century what Rusty Warren did 60 years ago.
Good point.
60.
That is exactly it. Because she's pushing buttons in a certain way. She's talking about celebrities. There's no holds barred on what she says.
There's no holds barred and nothing that comes out of her mouth. And that's where I felt, without being, I couldn't have got away. I wouldn't have looked good saying those words and dressed pretty with my diamonds and my clothes. And it didn't look well on me. It was bad enough that I was cute enough to get away with male and female little sex. I never talked gay sex. I didn't talk being Jewish or not being, religion didn't, because sex is universal. It doesn't have a color.
Well, I usually see like purple.
I didn't get into all that stuff.
But let me ask you a couple of more questions before we have to go. We have Rusty Warren on the phone all the way from Hawaii. Rusty, who was not only wise enough to catch on to what would make her popular and to sell records and to make her, when she would go to a club, even though she wasn't getting airplay on the TV or Johnny Carson's, people would show up because they wanted to see Rusty Warren. You spent your pennies wisely. You built up a company. And let me ask you, you went into business. I read this on a website. You didn't ever actually meet them, but in the same business as Barbara Streisand and Charlton Heston, investing in bull semen. Is this the truth?
Yeah, it was. Well, we both happened to be clients of a certified financial company called Brown and Kraft, and the man that ran my portfolio, they got together with somebody in, I forgot the state, and that gave me a laugh. we bought semen from bulls. It was some kind of a thing that you do. And it was an investment. Don't forget the Nixon days. Everybody invested in crazy things. And like myself, I didn't have the money Streisand and Charlton had, but we just put up money, thousands of dollars, into a group thing. The general partner was the one that had the cows, the Black Angus, and then they told me what we were buying, more or less. We didn't buy the steers, but we bought. They would take in a jar in a kind of a cold thing and get the sperm, and people who had cows, those kind of cows, they would take the sperm and ejaculate all the rest of their herd. So they get the fine male was very. We just thought it was funny. The funny part was we had to put our initials on our bull, and mine is RW, and Barbara's was BS. And so she was now married to Elliot Gould, and the joke was, is she going to go BG, or Elliot Gould, or is she going to go BS, Barbara Streisand? And I don't know why we thought it was funny, but
it's amusing to think of what the hell the dividend looked like. Oh God! But did you do okay on that investment? Did it pay off?
Yes, we did. And then when they got to get the money they needed and wanted, and we got up a little profit from it. They just bought us back, you know. They took together back. It was a general investment, and we were the second investors, the people that raised the money.
That is
We've done a lot. But that was the company that we were with, and they managed to. I had a lot of land in Arizona, and they helped me build a shopping center, and they helped me build an industrial plaza, which I named after my corporation at that time was Marquis Enterprises, and they did that and all kinds of things.
So ahead of your time, so wise in all the things that you were doing. But let me ask you, are there any moments that you remember, especially in the early years coming up in the clubs, considering you were dealing with sometimes maybe a rough crowd, and you were doing some slightly rough material? Were there scary, frightening, or moments that you had to climb out of?
No, I was naive or blasé or stupid. I can't imagine.
Like me.
But you do what you do, and you evolve. Because I also have the sense enough to know when something doesn't feel right. When somebody is really angry at me, I don't make an issue of it. Because you can never win with somebody that has that kind of anger. But after a while, I never got it. We only got fans. Once in a while, I was doing a concert. Now, this is the time when I got away from the piano, and I was standing up as a stand-up. And that because there were 3,000 people or 4, and we needed a bigger venue, I had to get out from behind the piano, and which I did. And I had a conductor, and I had my own little 6-piece group and all that. Not my own, but we would pick people up. And this was in a celebrity house, I think in California, Circle in the Round.
Okay.
And somebody started running down the aisle with a gun, saying, "Women are all bitches," and screaming. Of course, luckily in those places, there's loads of security, armed security, all over the place. And they ran and grabbed him. He didn't shoot anybody, thank God. But my drummer jumped off his drum. He was a little Italian, Pucci. Little Italian, he jumped off the jump. I said, "What are you going to do? You haven't got a gun? Where are you going?" I said, "Stay where you are. Don't go any further." And everybody was sort of scared. "I'll get him." And and before you know it was over, they took him out, and he apologized and all that. It was some material I was doing with females or women, as usual. That's what I did.
And you must have also...
he had a divorce, I don't know.
You must have also experienced being an attractive redheaded woman doing that kind of material. Men must have thought you were fair game to...
Not really. They were afraid of me mostly, of what I would say. But in my private life, I had no problem. But my fans very rarely did anything like that. I had a couple of altercations, but that was in a bar that I worked, the Pomp Room. I mean, the one in Golden Falcon in Fort Lauderdale, where I made Knockers Up. That was party time because we worked at 2 in the morning, and there was some guy that really thought he was going to pin me to the corner of the bar, and I don't know what gave me the impetus to say, "I've already told you get the F out of here." Now I say that off stage, but I don't say it on stage. And I said, "Please leave me alone." And he was really drunk. Well, I pushed him, and he was so drunk, and he was a big guy. He fell over the chairs and made such noise, I can't tell you, like I socked him or something. But I didn't, and people came up, and they took him out and everything. And now I became some pugilistic woman up there, and everybody was teasing me. "Don't get near her. She'll knock your ass off. She'll kick you in the you-know-whats." And I became very... You got to be afraid of me.
It's the old thing of if you want to keep bullies away, all you have to do is stand up to one bully, and the word
That's right.
gets around.
But only because I was tired of listening to his BS. Yeah, he was saying all these, "You belong to me," and we belong together. Listen to her. We both love to drink. I'm sitting there with a glass of scotch, for God's sake. This is how he took it. He wasn't with a wife or anything. He was just being nuts.
Now, let me ask you two last questions for Rusty Warren here in the neighborhood. Speaking of BS, You have never gotten real credit or even a positive attitude from the critics when they wrote about your albums, when they wrote about your shows. How did that? Was there a way you could let that roll off your back, as it were, kind of like a lover?
Yeah, but no, because that's their hook. That's how they get published, by using that kind of a hook, because I was that kind of a performer in those days. And they could grab onto that hook, whether it was Bruce for Lunch when he interviewed me in Chicago. He was nice. And he was nice to me when he was a reporter. But he gave me the zags and the zigs, and the New York Times called me the barnyard bellower, and they ended up insulting my fans instead of me. How could anyone come and see her? And then that was one of the. I've had negative reviews. Then I had wonderful ones, but mostly the writers wanted to use me as a wedge so they could get their columns printed or their thing. That's why I didn't get any of the biggies, because they didn't want to touch it. But, they didn't really want to touch it.
And it's the nasty, funny, as it were, reviews that sell papers. You sell more ink.
And then we don't have the media like we have today. I mean, today it's an instant situation. I'm all over the website. I'm over YouTube. I have all kinds of. I refuse to do Twitter and all that because I haven't got time. I don't have to tell you. I get on my Twitter thing and tell then I'm having an interview on the phone with Dave from Colorado and all that craziness. That's what I don't want to do that. I don't have anything interesting. I do at home here when I live quietly.
Can I ask, Rusty Warren, the last question before we do have to go, but you have never been married? Have you never?
No, I've had a lot of husbands. I don't know who they were, but I had them.
Are you still you're still out there dating, getting any secondary support?
No. No, once in a while we go to dinner with a group of widowed guys and stuff, but no, I'm not interested. It would be nice to have a warm person in my life. That might be nice, but it doesn't necessarily reach into the sexual part. It may, but it doesn't. And I just haven't met anybody, and I'm not looking. I've had a lot of wonderful people in my life, and that's fine. That's fine. I'm lonesome now. I have a roommate, a young man that rents one of my places in my home, and he's quiet. He's an artist, and he works down at the big hotel and makes portrait pictures of people, of the tourists and their people. But he's done that 15 years, and he has his own private area, my own. But I'd like somebody in the house anyway, just to know that somebody's there.
Right, and it allows you to stay in your home so that there's always, God forbid, an emergency. There's this young guy, help.
I don't want to wear that thing around my neck yet. I'm out a couple of times a week, and I'm driving and doing, little things. I don't do a lot of my shopping myself. It's hard for me to carry all those bundles up with my oxygen machine and all. I have a Respironics. I carry my own little, when I go play bridge, I have my little machine and sit there and with my little cannula in my nose and laughing and whatever. It doesn't stop me. I just walk slower.
That is what it is all about, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let it stop you.
Little things in life.
Just go a little slower and appreciate the little things in life. And
yeah, because if you don't go slow at my age and you break a hip, you're on a walker for the rest of your life. And I don't want to go there.
That's right. And, if my wife didn't appreciate the little things in life, I'd never get any sex, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, maybe. I've often thought that.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had the joy and the privilege and the pleasure of talking with the one and only Rusty Warren. Rusty, I thank you so much for taking this time with us from all the way beautiful, beautiful Hawaii. Go out there and enjoy the beautiful weather, because it's always gorgeous there. And
it is quite nice all the time. I can breathe here. Don't forget, with COPD, it's very hard to breathe. And the air is clean here. It's humid, and sometimes we get a fog, but most times it's got nice breezes. The palm trees are blowing. We get the trade winds, and it's beautiful.
Well, you should enjoy the breezes and the palm trees for many, many years to come.
Oh, one year at a time, Dave.
It's not Dave, it's Sol. Sol, you gotta remember that.
1 year, I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry, Rabbi. I shall look.
Shalom to you, and even though you're a little older, I think you can still, with me together, and all of us listening at home, wherever you are, get your shoulders together, get your knockers up, and all of us, let us bounce our boobies!
Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi.